In the early morning hours of February the 7th, 1882, a train leaves New Orleans heading for an undisclosed location, loaded with over 1,000 enthusiastic fight fans, anxious to see two bare-knuckle fighters. Paddy Ryan was recognized as the boxing champion of the world. Although in those days there was no such official title, it was all done on reputation. His challenger was a 23-year-old newcomer by the name of John L. Sullivan. Bare-knuckle boxing was considered to be a brutal sport. There was no set number of rounds. Fighters simply fought until they couldn't. Winners was the last man standing. The rings were roped off, but there was no canvas. They fought on bare ground. Thousands of dollars changed hands. You simply placed your bet on your man to win. Fight fans and gamblers come from all over to see the much publicized fight. Playwright Oscar Wilde is said to have been on the train coming all the way from Europe. Another passenger traveling under an assumed name was the most wanted outlaw, Jesse James. He'll be assassinated at his home in St. Joseph, Missouri, only 2 months after this fight. Bare-knuckle fighting was outlawed in most states. This is why even the passengers had no idea where they were headed. They only knew that it would be within 200 miles of New Orleans. The location was changed several times, and the governor of Louisiana said that he would declare martial law and call out the militia in order to stop the fight. The chosen town was Mississippi City, on the Gulf Coast between New Orleans and Mobile. It's now a part of Gulfport. The train stopped at this depot, and the fans walked a few blocks south behind the city hall. The ring was already set up when the train arrived. It was located on the grounds of the Barnes Hotel among the live oaks. It was located here at what was 108 East Beach Boulevard. It's now an empty lot, located between Texas and Arkansas Street. Both fighters put up $2,500 each from their supporters. It was winner take all. The editor of the Police Gazette, Richard K. Fox, was backing Paddy Ryan. Also at stake was the reputation of his magazine. Fans would gather around the fighters on the front lawn of the Barnes Hotel. Women and more wealthier fans would watch the bout from the hotel balcony. Thousands of people paid from $1 to $5 to watch the fight. Some around the ring, and others climbed the oak trees. It was the first time that women were allowed to watch a professional fight. The match started with high hopes on both sides. It was estimated that from $1,000 to $200,000 changed hands. Even though bare-knuckle fighting was illegal, local law officers were not about to try and stop thousands of die-hard fans determined to see this fight. Paddy Ryan had been considered the American champion ever since he had defeated Joe Goss in a blood-splattered 87-round bout 2 years earlier in 1880. It's been said that after the Goss-Ryan fight, both men were so disfigured that they couldn't be recognized. As the Sullivan-Ryan match started, it became quite apparent that Sullivan would dominate the fight. In the first round, Sullivan decked Ryan with a right to the head. Under the rules, the round ended when someone was knocked down. The next few rounds, Ryan was knocked down several times. The fifth round, Ryan managed to put Sullivan on his knees. And by the ninth round, Ryan's jaw was swelled and his eyes were black and almost closed. Sullivan was thrown to the ground once, which was legal in those days. The match will end in the 9th round when Sullivan lands a knockout blow. A reporter used the term knockout the first time ever, describing what happened to Paddy Ryan in the last round. The total match lasted only 26 minutes. The winner, John L. Sullivan, will take the prize of $5,000. After the fight, both fighters will go to their rooms at the Barnes Hotel, only a few hundred feet from the ring. John L. lay down to rest and catch his breath, but had no apparent injuries. The doctors checked and found that Paddy Ryan had cuts about his eyes, his lips were split and swollen, his nose was swollen and broke. He was exhausted. In the next years to come, the two fighters will have several glove matches, with Sullivan always winning. On one occasion, Sullivan even shared his winnings with the near-destitute Paddy Ryan. In the next few years, Sullivan will successfully defend his title, fighting exhibition bouts and taking on all comers. During this time, Richard Fox, editor of the Police Gazette, was continually looking for a fighter that could beat Sullivan. He believed that he had found the right man in Jake Kilrain. He knew that John L. was not training, that he was gaining weight and spending too much time in local saloons, drinking way too much. Although Sullivan didn't want to fight Kilrain, the Police Gazette said that he was afraid of losing. Sullivan was forced by public opinion to fight. To everyone's surprise, he started training. The biggest problem was his trainers had to find him sometimes after he had slipped off from the training camp to the local saloons. No one could believe that the old champ could ever get in shape for the fight. Now this is John L. on a trip right before the Kilrain fight, and notice his 5'10" frame, wide shoulders, and barreled chest. In the early morning hours of 8 July 1889, 7 years after the Sullivan and Paddy Ryan bout at Mississippi City, again a special train loaded with fight fans leaves New Orleans in the early morning hours. The governor of Louisiana stationed military militia along the train stops in order to prevent a fight. Around 10 a.m., fans will gather at Colonel Charles W. Rich's sawmill in Richburg, Mississippi, 3 miles south of Hattiesburg. They gathered to see the last world champion bare-knuckle boxing match to be held in the United States. At 10 a.m., Marion County Sheriff W.I. Cowart stepped before the crowd and read a proclamation from the governor of Mississippi to halt the fight. He said he'd be back later, but he had some important business to do right now and left. 20 workers worked through the night by torchlight to complete the stands for the fans out of sawmill lumber from Colonel Rich's sawmill. Newspapers from Los Angeles to New York was waiting for news. Bets were being placed all over the country. Dodge City Marshal turned sports writer Bat Masterson was on hand as a timekeeper. The fight was fought in blistering 104-degree heat. This brutal bare-knuckle combat will last for 75 rounds. It will take 2 hours and 16 minutes to determine who the winner will be. Now this is a picture of the beginning of the first round. During the fight there were 24 knockdowns, 7 throwdowns, and 26 times Kilrain took his knees. Now this is Kilrain on his knees. At the 44th round, Kilrain's fans took heart. when Sullivan began throwing up. Kilrain made an offer to Sullivan to call the match a draw. Sullivan said no. He knew a draw would mean that he would no longer be accepted as champ. Both fighters were drinking whiskey mixed with tea to keep down pain. But Sullivan had been on the wagon and his stomach wasn't ready for whiskey. Sick at his stomach, the fight continued. At the end of the 75th round, both fighters were exhausted and bleeding. Sullivan's hand had swollen twice its normal size. His eyes were black and his left ear was bleeding. Kilrain was in such bad shape that doctors told his manager, "Your man will die if he continues fighting." John L. Sullivan had successfully defended his title once again. Sullivan will hold the title of last bare knuckle champion and first glove champion for 10 years. Kilrain is said to have left the ring crying. Also, morphine was administered for pain. Fans and fighters returned to the train because the governor had offered a reward for the two fighters. Sullivan was arrested in Nashville and Kilrain was arrested in Baltimore. They were brought back to Mississippi for trial. Sullivan was found guilty of illegal fighting and sentenced to 1 year in jail. The verdict was overturned and he paid a fine of $500. Kilrain received a 2-month jail sentence, which Colonel Rich paid, and it allowed him to stay at Colonel Rich's home where the bout had took place. Jake Kilrain will continue fighting for a while, but he'll never fight for a championship again. He will lose popularity and take menial jobs after his Baltimore saloon burns. His last job will be a night watchman at a Quincy, Massachusetts shipyard. He'll pass away in 1937 at the age of 78, but not before he serves as pallbearer to his old foe, John L. Sullivan. After the fight, John L. will continue doing tours and even performing on the stage. He'll become the first real American sports celebrity. In 1892, out of shape and getting older, Sullivan will attempt to defend his crown. Gentleman Jim Corbin will knock out the champ in the 8th round. Sullivan stated, "I came to the ring once too often." In his career, he will fight over 400 times in exhibition and full fights. This would be considered unbelievable nowadays. On February the 2nd, 1918, in Abingdon, Massachusetts, John Lawrence Sullivan will succumb to his years of overindulgence in food, hard liquor, and too many hard knocks. Although he made millions during his fighting career, he was generous with his money. John L. Sullivan dies at the age of 59 with only $10 in his pocket.